Hi everyone, I'm Courtney Poole and welcome back to my channel. This video is about what is the cause of food addiction, why do we overeat, and it's the continuation of a series of videos about compulsive eating. And in this video we're going to be talking about the whys basically. In the last video I talked about what is food addiction and I gave some definitions and some criteria so that people could evaluate whether what they're doing with food and drinks is addictive or compulsive, or whether it's okay and there's not a problem with that. But this video is going to be about why we do it. And it is going to be an overview, so the subject of compulsive eating and even the subject of why we compulsively eat, there's a lot to say about that. So it's going to be segmented out into a lot of different videos, but this will introduce you to the main truth. That is the reason why we do it. And while we're here, I also want to say that, a lot of the reason I'm able to talk about this stuff from personal experience, and it's quite easy for me to talk about it, is because I've now had the personal experience. But initially, and still to an extent, I'm learning about it. And the way I've learned about it is, in a lot of cases, through other resources. And one of the most helpful resources for me has been the Divine Truth Teachings, which I've mentioned before. And so I wanted to say that a lot of the things that I'll be sharing are things that I learned from that. And I would recommend watching some of their videos on addictions, which include food addictions. So I'm going to put a couple of recommended ones in the description box below the video so that you can delve into it and find more juicy information. Pun intended, pun not intended actually, being a juice cleanse coach. Okay, so let's go. Here's the truth. Addictive or compulsive behavior with food or drinks is always the result of the desire to suppress emotions. Anytime that we do something with food or drinks that is destructive or that has any kind of mild or big negative effect on our bodies or our health or our lives, it is always because in that moment, and probably on a general basis, we wanted to avoid some feelings. Now, the emotions that we're trying to avoid with food, they could be mild ones in that moment, or they could be major ones. I would suggest that for anybody who's struggled with food compulsion long-term, or maybe in their whole lives, if you were like me, that probably it's some pretty major things that are being suppressed as well. And if you have always struggled with compulsive eating, like all your life, then that's an indicator that all your life you've been suppressing certain feelings or all feelings, and that's been an ongoing thing. And the feelings that we might be suppressing, it could be any feeling. So literally any emotion that the human soul is capable of experiencing is one that you could be suppressing with food. So it could be anger-based emotions, frustration, annoyance. It could be fear-based emotions, anxiety, stress, terror. It could be sadness, it could be grief, it could be loneliness, it could be pain. It could be any number of emotions, and it could be on any topic, really. It could be about anything. But the bottom line is our use of food in this way, when it's not in a balanced way, is going to be because whatever's going on, we want to suppress it. And we don't want to face the truth about something. We don't want to feel it mostly. Food, another way you can look at this is that food often plays roles in our lives. Or it plays a role. Well, it usually plays many roles in our lives for most people. And so you can kind of look at like what role is food playing in my life? And for many people, that can be things like companionship, comfort, safety, like joy. Sometimes it's the most exciting part of our day or our lives. And so if you look at what role it's playing, then probably that's what you're trying to get from the food, is those feelings. And most likely, part of what's going on is actually that what you feel is the opposite to that. So, for example, if food is a massive source of joy and like almost, it's the most exciting thing in your life by far, then that would indicate that you don't feel very joyful in your life separate from food. And that's probably the feeling that you're actually trying to avoid with the food. Or if food helps make you feel comforted and relieved, and you feel like you need it for that, and it's playing that role, then that would suggest that most of the time you probably have a sense of fear and discomfort and anxiety, and you're not letting yourself feel those feelings. And so then you're seeking the suppression of those feelings with food. Now, it's kind of amazing when you start looking at the truth about food addiction, because what you realize is that it's like a big iceberg. We all get really focused on the compulsive behavior with food and the what I shouldn't have eaten, what I should have eaten, and I shouldn't have eaten that, and how many calories did that have, and what did my weight say this morning, like all that stuff, right? And that is a problem. Like it can take over your whole life. Like I know it took over most of my life. But the truth is that this whole issue with food and weight, it's really a symptom. It's an effect. It's like the top of the iceberg that you can see that's out of the water. And then there's a whole thing underneath that we're just putting on horse blinders with and wanting to shove it all down with food, right? And so, that's kind of the basic understanding to have about it. Now, there's a really big distinction I want to make here that is so crucial for you to understand. And that's this. We don't overeat because we have painful or negative emotions. So I'll say that again. We don't overeat because we have painful or negative emotions. So here's the distinction. We overeat because we have a desire to not feel our emotions. So the desire in and of itself is a feeling. It's an emotion we have. So does that make sense to everyone? Rhetorical question, because you can't answer me. But I'll go over it kind of in some other ways. So in other words, it's not the existence of these feelings in ourselves that is the reason that we have issues with food or weight. It is because we have a feeling that I don't want to feel that stuff. I don't want to go there. I don't want to. I want to suppress, right? That's actually what causes us to compulsively eat. So when people say to me, like my clients, and I used to say this stuff too, they might say like, well, I was really stressed and so that's why I overate. Or, I felt really sad and so because I felt sad, I ate the pint of ice cream. And I always help them try to help them see that it wasn't because they were sad that they ate the pint of ice cream. It's because they didn't want to feel the sadness and they wanted to suppress the sadness that they ate the pint of ice cream. So, it's basically about what we need to shift in order to heal compulsive eating and to no longer struggle with this stuff so much. We have to shift from a desire to suppress, to avoid, to not go there. And we have to shift into having a desire to feel, a desire to connect to ourselves emotionally, a desire to connect to the real emotions that are in our soul, many of which are painful and hard. But the good news about this is that what it means is that you don't have to have solved all your issues in order to not struggle so much with food and weight. Like, in other words, you don't have to be perfect emotionally or perfect in your life in order to get there. It's not like you've got to have sorted all this stuff from your life and all the pain that you've had and all the heartache you've had and all the stuff from childhood and become this Zen master, and then that's when you can have freedom with food and weight. The truth is you can have it before. All it takes is just that shift. And when I say all it takes, it doesn't feel that simple for most of us, and it's often not that simple. But in a way of simplifying it, that is what it's about, basically. But the problem is that most of us don't want to feel, and that's the crux of our issue. And this is why, 95% of people who lose weight gain it back. Or this is part, this is a part of that puzzle. And it's also why a lot of people don't even ever lose weight, right? They can't get out of that cycle of weight and food and all that. And a lot of it is because really the only way you can change these things long term is to recognize that this is the truth about it and to start to look at, okay, I'm using food in order to moderate how I'm feeling. I'm using it to suppress how I'm feeling. And then start looking into that. And in future videos, I'm going to go more into, things that you might be wondering, like, well, how do I connect with those emotions? What if I don't really feel that emotionally connected? Or what if it doesn't even feel that emotional when I eat? Or on the other hand, what if I feel like I cry all the time and I feel like I'm pretty emotionally, sensitive, and yet I still have this compulsive eating? And, why don't we want to feel our emotions, and how do we start to feel them? So we're going to talk about all that. But this video is meant to just be an introduction an introduction to the truth that the reason that we compulsively eat is always because we want to suppress feelings with it. And again, if you want to watch the Divine Truth videos, I'll link below. That will help with probably your understanding as well. And I will look forward to talking with you again in future videos. Bye, everyone.